Leanna, thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So, Leanna is a healer who helps women take their vision off the dusty shelf and activate it here on the ground level while healing all the feels that inevitably come up around being seen and taking concrete action towards what they deeply desire. And she
Mhm.
supports women in fully owning their desires and healing the deep wounds they carry so that they can hold and sustain the vision. So,
Mhm.
and you say, you know, an important piece that I would love you to speak a little bit more about is the process of collective reconciliation as
Yeah,
a
the
process that
reconciliation.
begins with the self
Hmm.
moving towards wholeness, right? And dissolving collective divides. So speak a little bit to that piece.
Yeah, the reconciliation. Such a powerful word because so I have guides. Sometimes they talk from my left or my right, but they're always sort of dropping little bits in, and they've been giving me this word reconciliation for a while, which
Mm.
isn't my word, and it's certainly it's a word that brings up a lot as a Canadian. We are in the truth and reconciliation phase as Canadians, or we're supposed to be. Um, and really that's a process of reconciling the past history between indigenous communities throughout Canada and non-indigenous communities, and really finding a way to honor this happened, this is how it happened, this
Mhm.
is what really went on, and kind of really decolonizing that lens, if you will, or uncolonizing, as you mentioned yesterday, of just stripping away what we think history is and really listening to all the different voices. And I think for us to do that as non Indigenous peoples, we have to be able to have a clear system that can handle discomfort, that can handle conversations that we never really had to have, and really seeing our own privilege in that, and then also going, okay, but there's listening that I need to do, and it's really just learning how to be an absolutely pristine listener
Mm.
without letting your own stuff get in the way, so that you get your back up and you just want to try and find a way out of the discomfort, or taking responsibility or ownership, or you know so that's really reconciliation, is like, it comes down to this: is I have two different voices and they both want two different things. How can I reconcile that? I want to go out, I want to Netflix and chill. It's that simple. And so, what's the process you have for allowing these two parts to be and bringing them together so that you can move forward?
Yeah.
And when you can do that within yourself effortlessly, or at least on an easier level, now you can sit and actually listen to somebody,
Yeah.
and it's kind of just, it's meta, but also not very
Yeah.
practical.
And you're really highly skilled. Like I don't know what all your certifications are, but I experience you as being highly skilled in being able to attune to and listen to all of the parts of ourselves that are like
Hmm.
vying for attention or getting activated, and
Hmm.
to really like go to each and figure out what they all need
Oh, yes.
and stay present in the process. So I would love for you to describe like what does your process look like in reconciliation work?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, I have a lot of different voices right now that as soon as that, and they get triggered, right? They get triggered by the external world, right? And it's
Yeah,
like when
yeah.
you said you're highly skilled, I had a part that like had the coffee mug and spat it out like, "Pfft, what? What are you talking about?" Like she's just like, yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. And another part that's really afraid to let that be seen,
Yeah.
like very quickly I was like, what if a client watches this and didn't have a good experience and maybe messages me and calls me out and is like, you're lying to the world, Leanna. So I have to notice. I can't just push them away because they're inconvenient. I just have to ask them to relax back a little bit. This
Mm.
is very, very parts work, right? This is very, very Richard Swartz of me, of like asking the parts to just There's nothing they have to do. They don't have to defend me here. They don't have to take a stand. They don't have to get in the conversation. Like none of that has to happen. And so once I can do that, now I have more space to like really be present and to really access that self in me that feels connected to the work that I do and knows it's for a bigger purpose,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a piece that I would really like you to bring in to this conversation is like,
Mhm.
we experience all of this activation and mental chatter and things that get in the way
Yeah.
of this connection to true self, authenticity, core, source,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it within, or the divine within. Like this is something that you teach consistently,
Mhm.
is returning to
Mhm.
that source, is like resourcing in that place or resting in that place
Yeah.
by having a relationship to all of these different parts of us that get activated. And so I would
Yeah.
love for you to share a little bit about,
Yeah.
yeah, those experiences, that what you teach.
Yeah. So the word relationship really comes up. So I think, and I say this over and over again, right? Like we somehow the memo got mixed up, like a little mixed up in the self development world of like releasing and letting go means that you cut parts of yourself off that are inconvenient, uncomfortable, just not supposed to be here. Like I'm not supposed to be this person. I'm not supposed to have these thoughts. I'm not supposed to be this way. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like God was handing out normalcy, and I missed the freaking memo of like when to be there and when to get the thing from God. And it's like we all think we're messed up, right? We all
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that, right? And so like and just being so hyper vigilant and so hyper aware of like what's happening. But it's all about relationship, right? So I think we've somehow learned that for us to be okay, we have to completely cut these parts off. And the truth is that these are often parts that actually carry the medicine we're here to give,
Mm.
right? Like my part of my medicine is this liberation or this freedom from the and dissolving the imagined constraints and restrictions we have. And who best dissolves restrictions than a child? Because they don't have any.
Wow. Just want to bust things over.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's like that 6-year-old who's running through the flowers free as all can be before the world got a hold of her,
Yeah.
right? And so that's that she has an incredible amount of resources for me to remember that that's also who I am.
Mhm.
And so I think the relationship matters in terms of how do I connect with the parts of me that try to keep her away because she also carries, and in part smaller parts of me carry, not so good feelings and not so good memories. And
Right.
I think to myself, if I can say this honestly, I really had a great childhood when all is said and done. And I know it does us no favors to compare ourselves to other people because we all have our thing. And who knows what lifetimes I carry. But I can honestly say, like, yep, there were some tough times. And yeah, like my parents weren't like, they did their thing just like they learned, right? And of course, but I was okay. And if I come out of this still feeling completely disarrayed some days and messed up, what does that mean for people who legitimately have had some very big traumas in their life where they've
Yeah.
witnessed murder or they're in a war torn? And so it really calls me forward to just sort of see it as a bigger picture beyond
Yeah.
myself, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so there is a part of me that's like, "Oh, you're" can I be really honest? Because there's a part of me that's like, "You haven't had enough trouble and trauma in your life to be able to guide other people, like, you've got it too good, woman." And it's like, then I make myself wrong for having a good childhood, like, when are we gonna give ourselves a break?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
when are
Yeah.
we gonna just let it be
Yeah.
okay?
coming
Yeah.
from that place of like, oh, never good enough, never good enough.
Even when it's good, it's not enough. Like why are we doing it this way? And so when you start to kind of uncover that, like, well, why am I doing it this way? Like, where did that come from? What's that about? How does that show up, and how do I respond to it? Because
Yeah.
that's what relationship really is. It's a response you have to what is in you and around you. And it's
Hmm.
the response you have. And sometimes it's so natural to have a certain response. Like I feel very natural around you. There's something in you that feels very natural, right? And I just needed to say that because
Thank
I
you.
like I showed you my breast the other day. I'm like, I just want to show you my babies. Like I just feel really involved in life when I'm around you, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's something in that. And I just wanted to note that. That's a total sidetrack, but
Yeah.
rein me back in, woman. Rein me back in.
I love it. Love it.
Uh,
So when we first got on this call, you spoke about guides, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
really, part of my mission is to have people be guided by their intuition. So
yeah,
I would love for you to share your story of coming into that trust of intuition.
yeah.
Yeah, what was the journey like for you?
Yeah, I still don't trust my intuition all the time. I
Yeah.
just trust it more than I don't. So I
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
like clarify that intuition's not it's not an end all be all. I think I started writing this in our messaging. Like it's not the gold seal of approval that everything's okay. Sometimes intuition is incredibly unsettling in your system to
Yes.
know something.
Yes.
Like, and to not even have a language for it. Like there's just this knowing of something that I've experienced, whether it's a past life, like I don't have language for it.
Yes.
And so, intuition runs on the spectrum of sometimes even last night. So last night we had big rainfall and I was scrolling my feed and I saw somebody had a flood in their basement and it got me remembering like, oh yeah, we've got to check our basement. And I told my husband and he said this morning, he goes, that was so good that you said that because there was some burning plastic down there. He's like, good on you and following your intuition. And I said, it's not really intuition, it's just paying attention, and you get these little drop-ins and hints, and maybe
Yes.
that's your angels, maybe that's your guides, maybe that's God, maybe that's just you paying attention. So there's like intuition. It I did this teaching like years ago and I still think it's true, where it runs on a spectrum of sometimes we're just accessing tips and tricks we've learned because we've just been paying attention, and then other times it's because there's some prior knowledge that we forgot that we remember, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. I know that sounds contradictory, but it's like you go out and you've spent, hundreds of hours as a child out in the woods
Yeah.
and you've been told all these things about plants, and then, you go out and you see a new plant and you don't have a reason why, but you just know that doesn't feel right to pick that plant and consume it. And so is that intuition, or is this just a remembering that you have of information that you've received?
Hmm.
Right? And then there's intuition where you're driving your car and something tells you pull over, and you pull over and right behind you comes rearing transport truck that would have smashed you. Right? So it shows up in all different ways. Um I think sometimes we can deny our knowing and our intuition until we backed ourselves into a corner, and that's my experience in my journey of
Oh,
stepping away from teaching and really going full into my full decision to be here in my business. It's like I backed myself into a corner. Like I got so exhausted. I got so worn out. I was like, I'm going to make it so that I have no other choice. And so
wow.
I can't even say it was intuition other than I knew it for so long and just didn't do anything about it.
Yes. Yes. It's like we press the ignore button, right? It's like, oh,
Keep
not paying
going.
attention, right? It's the attention thing. I'm not paying attention to you. I'm just going to keep going on my trajectory just because
Yes,
this is more comfortable and I'm kind of scared about what's waiting for me over there.
it's that, but I honestly think it shows up, I think, for people like, I just got to get through this week. Things are just
Yeah.
really going to be
Right.
crazy for the next month. Like, I'm going to wait till I'm finished my school year. I'm going to wait till March break. I'm going to wait till this, that, and the other.
We delay, delay, delay. Yeah.
Delay. It's a delay, right? It's a delay, delay, delay. And so I think this is how we move through intuition in our real day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say that I had this like profound moment? I mean, there was a few of them, but not all of them felt good. Like one
Yeah.
was like picking up my daughter's crib sheets that I had neglected because I was so pregnant and so tired. And she had just like, she has sniffly nose, maybe her eyes, whatever. And it's like literally crunched up like it's in a particular shape that a sheet should not be in. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at it like, this is such a metaphor for like where my priorities are,
Mm.
like, and knowing like this is not how I want to be. This is not the mother I want to be. This is not the person I want to be. And just kind of knowing that this is my limit. This is where I can't not pay attention now,
Yeah. And so, yeah,
you know,
sometimes we make a decision from places where we're backed in a corner.
where we've backed
Right.
ourselves into a corner.
Right. Yeah.
We've
Yeah,
backed
exactly.
ourselves
Yeah.
consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah. By not responding to
Yeah. Because
what
our
was.
parts are really good. They're very, very effective at keeping us towing a line.
So why is that?
Because our brains and our systems are so brilliant and we're so good at, I mean, take disassociation. Like, what a brilliant way to continue to agree to stay here. Like, what a friggin' amazing thing we have. We've got these parts that just, and I was just writing a post on this. It's like that 16-year-old that's like, I'm not going to the prom, like, whatever. Proms are for
Right.
like, whatever, those people. Or like, I'm not joining sports teams because that's too chummy. And it's this like very interesting level of disassociation where you're like,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to go there because that's scary and it can hurt me. So I'm going to pull myself away and be like, that's not for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And it's like that. No,
Mhm.
that's like, I'm kind of too cool. And these are brilliant parts that come in to quell the fire inside of you, to quell the feelings. And it's just like your brain can literally only handle a percentage of information coming in.
Yeah.
Quite a small percentage actually, because if you really took in all the information outside of you, like if I really took in this tree and everything about this tree I'm staring at, like I would explode. Like the oneness would take me over and it would like friggin' knock me over, right? So we have these really brilliant parts that come in. The problem with that is I'm not 16 anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in my early 40s. I've got a ton of tools. I have a wonderful husband, a family that loves me, friends that care deeply about me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to not go to the prom anymore,
Yeah.
even though I went to the prom, but like as a metaphor, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. The thing around attending to the parts, you have this relationship with them, and you can ask them to do things for you. You can ask them to take a breath and move back.
yeah, you can.
Right? You can sort of move them around your inner field,
Yes.
and and make space for this contact with yourself. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they're so powerful that they can have you thinking it's who you are.
Say more about that. I think that's
Yeah.
important.
So that um it's called blending, but basically it's when you have a part that's so wanting to take over and can take over,
Hmm.
um, that you can't not experience all the feelings that it has, all the thoughts that it has, all the sensations. And there's a part of you that knows this isn't me, like, and that's why you want to get out of it. But you
Yes.
can't just kick a child, like, you would never kick a child out to the curb and be like, "Good luck out there, like,
Hmm.
you're not
Hmm.
wanted." And that's why it doesn't work
Right.
to cut those parts off or to let them go, because like, you
Yeah.
can't, it's like cutting off a limb,
Absolutely.
right? And so, they will literally latch on to you, and they will
Mhm.
really try to take over, but it's because you gotta sit and listen to them and witness them and get them. Really deeply be willing to get them. And the self, that divinity of you, that God source creation of you is unwavering and it can completely handle any of it.
Mm,
Right. And so there is this beauty in that separation where we recognize I'm not the thoughts, feelings, sensations, or beliefs that this 6-year-old had, but I am experiencing it. It's in my body. So there's this level of response required, which is responsibility, right?
yes.
That I have to respond to this. And that's why many people are drawn into this spiritual work is because they're like, I know that this isn't me.
Hmm.
And now what?
Right, right. Yeah. Wow, I'm thinking about when you're sharing that example, I'm thinking about moments in my life where I've felt either unworthy or unwanted or
Hmm.
rejectable, and it's
Yes.
felt so closely connected to
Yeah.
my ego identity that it's felt like I can't separate it, you
Can't
know?
separate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't separate it. It
And
feels
when,
like that.
yeah, and I can't even describe to you how it became separate, but just through this process of this 4-year training. But I would do you have like a way for people to begin that process of like maybe
Mhm.
like a healthy detachment or that
Yeah.
process of separation?
So parts are reliably, and I also just want to really clarify here if you are hearing this and it's resonating with you. So I don't do parts work as a in its entirety. But I've spent the last year learning it, and I can tell you that it matches so well with what I've learned in NLP and my yoga and just my Reiki that it's like,
Right.
oh, this fits so perfectly, right? And so I think
Yes.
that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're listening, you're like, "Ah, I just want to know more, definitely go look it up. It's called Internal Family Systems. Richard Swartz was the founder of it. He's been doing it for decades, and you can just YouTube him, and he's just
Yeah.
fascinating to listen
Yeah.
to. So I
Yeah.
just want to say that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the parts are the voices in your head, despite what we may think, are reliably responsive. In other words, they're agreeable. They will agree to step back and give you space for the most part. 9 times out of 10, they will. And immediately you start to feel these sensations of the truth of you, which is calm. It's now you're connected because
Yeah.
you've built that connection versus like, oh, this is who I am. It's like
Yeah.
peel it off a little bit and go, right, there's a part of me that really believes I can't do anything right.
So even just
Hmm.
naming it already creates a little bit of that separation where
Yeah.
even just like peeling it off yourself and looking at it.
Right. And so this is why quantum healing is so powerful in the way that I do it and have learned and been mentored in doing it is that it's just simply about speaking your truth.
Mm-hmm.
So now instead of trying to sort it and organize it and file it and make sense of it and hold it here and in our body on our own, isolating ourselves basically
Yeah.
from the very thing that we need, which is other humans need humans. Now we take it out of our body and we give it language. And
Mm,
as you know, language is incredibly powerful. It carries a vibration. So, in some way, we've taken this thing, let's call it a little thing, and we've taken it and we've gotten it literally out of our body. It
mhm.
also works with parts work because now we can get curious about that. The part of you that has this thought, feeling, sensation, or belief that you've just named.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's meet with that. Let's ask this part of us, this entity, if you will, what does it need us to know? Because it needs us to know something.
Yeah.
It needs us to get something
Yeah.
and bear witness to it. And then from there, it's like imagine that this is like a little you and it's carrying energy. And by listening to it, it also gets to speak its truth. And
Mm,
it just,
mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's really what releasing and dissolving and letting go is about.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
about finding ways to turn the volume down. It's actually about finding the sacred, reclaiming that sacred path to actually turning the volume up,
To be
right?
able to listen to what that
Yeah,
part of you wants to say, what it needs to express.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you ensure that you have a level of clear, clean curiosity toward this part, that you
Yeah.
don't hate on it.
Mm-hmm.
Check in like how you're feeling about it. If you're hating on it, then that's not really you.
Yeah. Right.
The
Right. That
part
is
that
so
hates it,
true.
just like, can you give me some space now? It's just like constantly like
Yeah.
sweeping these parts aside, not because you don't want to listen to them, but like, just like if I'm cooking a meal and my daughter needs me, I can't do both.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. No, I love that. I love that. And that happens a lot with clients.
Yeah,
Like, get curious about it. And then there's judgment there. Like it's
totally.
curiosity with like, why are you here? Why are you
Yes.
still here?
Why are you still here?
Yeah.
Right. And that's not listening, right? That's not
No.
listening. That's coming at somebody.
Yeah.
That's like rule number one in a marriage. Like, don't assume anything.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
don't like me because you don't want to be married to me because you don't take me on dates anymore. And it's like, I don't know. Is that true? Have you checked it out? Like, rule number one, don't assume what your parts are thinking until
Yeah.
you listen to them. You'd be absolutely surprised. Just like I had mentioned of that 10-year-old part, I was like, what? That's the total opposite. Like, you'd
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
surprised pleasantly.
And
Yeah.
when you're you work with primarily entrepreneurs, healers.
Primarily, but not exclusively. So that was never an intended thing. It's just sort of what's happened.
Yeah.
And that's a real internal battle that I kind of go through on every launch. I'm like, oh my God, who's it for? I don't know. Should it be for just visionaries? Stick with just visionaries because that's pretty umbrella. And like, maybe not everybody's in a business. You can't really help them get their business. It's about them. And so it's like this constant.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that a lot of women I work with, yes, they are visionaries that are activating that online as healers, light workers,
Yeah.
lovers.
And you really get into that inner work that
Mhm.
allows the process of building what you desire, whether it's a business or a
Yeah.
project or whatever, to be able to facilitate the building of that process.
Yeah. And it's a lot of it is just really around creating a new language for yourself. If I
Yeah.
was really to strip it down, it's like
Yeah.
it's giving them offerings of a new language. So they literally tell me after, like, I heard your voice in my head. And I'm like, it's my voice, but it's like, it's you recognizing that this is another way you can do it. And
Yes.
I
Yes.
just think that's what, if unlearning is about that, I think it's not fair to expect us to remember this ancient knowledge that has taken generations to almost be dissolved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to have explicit teaching at some point,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's like, you want to know how to deal with the voices in your head? Here's one way. First, you do this, then that. Try it. Oh my God, great. Keep doing it. Like, I
Mhm.
just think we sometimes coaching gives us too much of an area to figure it out, and we just need explicit
Yes. Steps.
steps.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I really love about your posts and your writing and your approach that you like nothing is wrong.
No, nothing is wrong.
Nothing is wrong. It
No.
all gets to be here. And I
Yeah.
really love that.
Yeah.
Just that frame alone
Yeah.
just relaxes the nervous system.
Yeah. Because it is true that nothing is wrong, but also that's what abundance is about.
Mm,
Right? Like, people want abundance, start within yourself, that all thoughts, feelings, sensations, and beliefs are here. And they're all tied back to, they all go back to love. There's an abundance of love within me, even when I have a thought that I think that part of me thinks isn't good or right. The truth of me knows it is. And there's an abundance of love in me.
I
Do you
love
see
what
what
you
I'm
just said.
saying?
I
Yeah.
love how you just said it because I've never said it that way.
Hmm.
Every part of you, even
Every
the
part.
parts that you dislike, the ones that you're afraid of, the ones that
Yeah.
you avoid, they all go back to love.
It's all goes back to love. Like, at the end of the day, when everything is stripped down, it's all love. And so that's what abundance to me is about, right? It's
That
about
that's
that
freaking
frequency.
brilliant right there. I love
Yeah.
that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So nothing is wrong. And what a great place to start from. Now you've cleared out 90% of your problems.
Right, exactly.
Like that, when they say, what's the problem you solve? I never know the answer to that one day to the other, like, definitively. I'm like, well, today it's this. Let's see what tomorrow is. But a big one is like this, that we're the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is the
Yeah. Oh,
problem I help solve.
absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And say a little bit more. This I'm sort of doing a big jump from here.
Love it.
We had been talking about intuition,
Yes.
and I remember you yesterday. We had a meeting yesterday, and we were talking
Mm.
about intuition and boundaries.
Yeah. I'm still kind of opening that little gift and being
Yeah.
like, what else is in here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because at first I notice a part that's like, we have no idea what the connection is. We just don't know anything. And it's like convincing me, Leanna, you have no idea. You didn't sit with it last night. You didn't write anything. Don't talk about it. Divert to something else. Like this is the work. Like I notice that part, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
I get it wants me to get it right. It wants me to help the people that are listening and do it in a good way. Like it really, and so it just doesn't want me to mess up. And if I ask this part to sit back and relax, now self can come through and I can say, that's an example of intuition and boundaries. I have to have boundaries with my own parts and an agreement between myself and my voices so that I can open up and say, yeah, when I can do that, now I have this level of clarity naturally in me where I can receive intuitive information. And
Mm-hmm.
so intuition right now and intuitively, like being able to know my next step is to say that's an example. What I just shared is an example of boundaries and intuition, where the better you are with your own internal boundaries with your voices, the better you are able to access intuition and know the next thing to say, to
Got it.
do. Do you see how it's all,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and that's all just being present in the moment, which
Yeah.
self can do. Parts, not so much.
So yeah, so
Not so
that's
much.
interesting because you talk about intuition and boundaries in that
Mm.
way.
In this way, yeah.
Yeah,
In
and
one sense.
in one
Mhm.
sense, and I feel like there's another piece where how I've experienced some of the voices and some of my very pushy guides
Mhm.
have been like, now. And I'm just like, whoa, I can't do now. I can't do that now. And they're like,
Yeah.
now.
Now.
And
Yeah.
I remember my
Yes.
very kind therapist in the moment being like, you can dictate your own pace.
Yep.
Because sometimes the guys are very loud, very pushy, very like they don't have a sense of time,
Yep.
and so we have to set that pace. We have the power to set that pace,
Yeah.
whatever,
And
to
interpretation, right?
exactly.
Right? Because every project or vision or thing that we're here to do isn't just this big one grandiose Hollywood step. It's a series of small decisions every day. So
Yes.
starting now could just be, well, I'm deciding it's starting. Great. I've decided. There's nothing more uncomfortable. And my sister reminds me, I told her this years ago. She's like, I say this all the time. It's like there's nothing more uncomfortable in our body is the moment before we've made a decision because we
Mm.
haven't landed anywhere. We're just like, ah.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
is hard to kind of intuit from that place because, you know, it's better when we're grounded in a choice or decision or commitment for intuition to actually work because now we're willing to listen to it.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. And
There's more
so,
to it. There's more
yeah.
to it. Always. Yeah.
I want us to take some time to talk about a project that you and I are working on together.
Hell yeah, definitely.
Hell yeah.
Yes, obviously. I'm so excited.
Yeah. And it's
Mm.
called Finding Home.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah,
talk about who it's for and what we're doing together here.
yeah. Do you wanna like, I've done I mean, well, at least I have a part that's like, "You have talked a lot, girl." Like,
No,
do you
I really want you to take up the
cool.
space. I want people to really experience your personality and the energy with which you step into this
Cool.
supportive role. I no, I really love it. Yeah, please.
Okay, cool. And this is also nice because 'cause it'll help with the intuition and boundaries, like, I think when we tell it through an actual story, concrete,
Yeah,
anecdotal.
yeah.
So I was in my kitchen, and I was walking by my table, And I just became very aware that we were supposed to do a workshop together. Or that I wanted, truthfully, it's like I'm launching something and I'm like, I want to do this workshop. I'm like, you know what this workshop also really, really needs is somebody to do it this also in the workshop, which is where you came in, which is more of the body stuff and like the movement. And I just see you so in your body and just so able to coach from that place. And I love coaching what's happening up here. It's like I can help you with this stuff,
Mm.
right? And so it just made sense. It's like, what does this kind of quantum healing approach really need? Because we're working like with what's happening here and dropping it into the body.
Yes.
It needs a place to be in the body safely, to move energy, like just that extra little oomph, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you came to mind, and I sat there and I went, okay, I got to message her. And it was just this intuitive, like this, that, okay, this makes too much sense not to do anything about it. Cause we get downloads all damn day. Like I've got 25 ideas I had today, but like, how many are you going to do? And this one's like, you're going to do this. It was very clear. And when I messaged you, I was a bit nervous because I'm like, I don't know what she thinks of me, if that's something she has time for, right? Like I'm always kind of like, hi, like a bit mousy sometimes, depending on where I am in my cycle. But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, I've already shown you my boobs. Let's do a workshop together. Like, let's just do that. And I just enjoy like your energy, right? And the reception was like better than I could have imagined. Um, so, and I think this is kind of where the boundaries comes in, where it's like, okay, cool. Like we both agree how cool this would be. That does not guarantee that it's not
Mm.
going to like unravel and fall apart, because I've had
Yes.
many of these initial meetings and it's like, oh, okay, maybe not. Like maybe we don't take this, but this is a cool thing, something else.
Yeah.
So I think this is where like this beautiful boundaries in a sense of what's the netting, what's going to hold this together, what are our agreements that we come, and you really go
Yes.
at it very much the same as when I'm setting up a group container. What are
Yeah.
we all agreeing to when we
Yeah.
use our language, and we, how do we show up here, and like, are there any no-go zones? And it's like, not
Yeah.
really, but maybe, so I think that is really where boundaries came in, where I can clarify, how much do we want to charge? What is our launch system going to be? Because I've had this experience where I ended up doing, just like high school projects, I ended up doing 90% of it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it didn't work out.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just the structure and yeah, the agreements of how we're gonna co-create. How are we
How are we
gonna
going to do
co-create?
this?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it actually going to look like?
Yes.
Right. Um, and because I've had, and actually having that face-to-face meeting was really important. And so I also have to hold the boundary in myself of choosing myself and honoring what I need, which is like, Voxer's cool, but for me to feel really safe and for my nervous system to want to go ahead with this and to
Yeah.
trust this, we need to have a meeting face to face where we can just
Yeah.
get it out. And now I feel like a million times better. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of me that's go with the flow, easy breezy, like, woo. And also, I love some kind of structure.
Yeah.
I feel safe. And
Yeah.
I learned that teaching kindergarten for years and years.
Mm.
They need both.
Yeah. And even sometimes we need structure even to so that we can depart from it.
Excuse me. Yes.
You know,
That's the whole thing. It's like if like halfway through we're like, "Oh my god, we're going to ditch this and do this." Great. At least we have something to step off of
yeah.
instead of like, "Oh my god, let's go to that rock." No, maybe that rock. I don't know. We'll get across somehow. Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's fine.
Right.
You can step rock by rock, but
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah. So let's talk about remembering
Mm,
boundaries and intuition. Like
yeah.
this is sort of what we're offering
Yeah.
as
Those
part of
three
this
pillars.
quantum, yeah, 3 pillars as part of this quantum healing experience.
Yeah. Boundaries,
Remembering and intuition.
remembering, and intuition. And they just fit so beautifully.
Yeah.
In a sense, they're all the same, right? It
Hmm.
all goes back to love. It all goes, when I say love, I'm really talking about divine. I'm talking about creator. I'm talking about God. I'm talking about source. I'm talking about this highest level of consciousness is like, it's love at the end, right? And
Hmm.
that's, but for all of them, all three of them, yeah. What did you want to dig into? The remembering? Is that what you just said?
I wanted to talk about like, you talked about these three pillars, how do
Yeah.
they all go together?
Yeah.
We're separating them, we're teaching them, you know, what are we offering as part of the experience? Like, I want listeners to like hear what
Yeah.
they're getting out of this experience.
Yeah. So for me, the intention comes so naturally because intuition, like it would just the way that it came to me was like,
Yeah.
this just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So my invitation for those coming, my offering, my intention, my deepest desire is that they leave with an ability to work with the voices in their head that they
Yes.
can use on repeat,
Yes.
and that we practice it, and that their body learns that it's safe to say what's really happening, and
Hmm.
to to be willing to go, well, what lives under that, and what lives under that. That's kind
Right.
of how I sort of guide people through, as we say, what are you aware of? I mean, what is right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, why are
Yeah.
you here? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, what lives under that? And so there's this process of speaking your truth, but then kind of being able to put that in some kind of a process or context, which is where we start to really open the idea that you have parts to you and
Yeah.
these aren't you. And so, like, giving that process, and then also my hope is that your medicine can release the tension or energy that does get built up over
Hmm.
decades and decades,
Yeah.
at least to have some knowing that you can do this, that your body's capable of releasing energy.
Yes. And
That's my
talking about,
intention.
yeah, and we talked about like supporting people in moving from sympathetic to parasympathetic, right?
Yes.
From a fight or flight or even freeze or fawn mode
Yeah.
into that safe and social, right? Into
Yeah.
that, like, yesterday I talked about like the helicopter landing pad, the
Mhm.
child's pose on the yoga mat, this landing place of
Mhm.
safety from which you can then, right, contact source more
Yeah.
deeply or create, you know
Yeah.
yeah, from,
A
yeah,
rest and recovery place
exactly,
and a
exactly.
place of activation. And so why is this for visionaries? For me, is because without these essential key skills to be in your mind and in your body in a good way, you are going to make it infinitely more difficult to show up, to be visible, to take risks, to
Yes.
expand yourself, to do just small little things. Like, what are you going to do if you have a bad day and
Yeah.
a voice really wants to take over? Well, then you're at the whim of that, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna go, hide under your covers and, like, Netflix beyond chill, and,
Yeah.
like, what happens what's the outcome is that people don't get your medicine, and we all
Yes.
suffer, and it's like it doesn't and I know that because I've done it.
Yes, me
I have
too.
done it for so long, and I'm like and I still go through those phases, but they're not as long or painful.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wanna normalize that.
Hmm.
But that isn't to me, that's an essential skill, and it all leads to being able to make a decision and commitment and follow through, which is essential as a visionary. Without that, you've got a vision that some days it's on, some days it's not. You'll get there when you get there. I'll follow the signs, and it's like it's
It's
so
too
drawn
loosey
out,
goosey. Yeah.
too loosey goosey, and it takes infinitely longer to do.
Oh my God. Yes.
And we
So
don't have
this,
to do it that way.
yeah. So this is you get frameworks, you get
Yeah.
concrete skills to manage
Yeah.
the inevitable shit that comes up on
Yes.
the path to doing spiritual work or visionary work or spiritual
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, right? To be able to hold ourselves in all of those
Yeah.
experiences, to be able to keep moving the vision forward, to keep sharing your
Mhm.
magic and
Yeah.
medicine in the world.
To keep showing up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's if you've chosen to be a visionary, you've chosen to put yourself out there online.
Yes.
That's not easy to do for everyone
No.
all the time.
Right. Right.
It can be really hard, and it can
Yeah.
really unless you have certain inside resources, like it can drain you, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that way.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
want to kind of like infuse a little resource that's
Beautiful.
multifaceted and
Hmm.
let's make it easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just sort of make it easier.
Let's
Yeah.
just make it,
Remove difficulty, insert pleasure.
yes, let's make it much easier.
So Leanna
Yeah.
and I are offering this workshop on Friday, October 22nd. It's a 3-hour workshop. We're offering it at $88, which is
Yes.
an amazing investment. And we're going
Yeah.
to be including the links to sign up for that in the
Yeah.
show notes of this podcast.
Yes. 100%.
Leanna, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your energy and your just loveliness with the listeners and with me today. It was
Yeah.
great having you
It
here.
was way better than my brain was going to let me think it was. It's like, get it together. It's together. We got it. It's good. It's so good. Thank you. Really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Yeah.